The 19th edition of the National Congress of the Communist Party of China, which is called the CPC, has just ended today. This Congress is held every 5 years, and this time it was a major big deal. But what is this Congress all about? President Xi Jinping is going to become the most powerful man in China, supposedly after Mao. What does this all mean?
As you said, this Congress, which is held once in 5 years, is basically the process for anointing the new leader for the next 5 years. And, President Xi Jinping, it's pretty clear that he's going to get a second term. What happened today was that his thoughts have been included in the Chinese Communist Party's constitution formally. Now, as you said, that is a really big deal, because there are only 3 leaders who've had their thoughts or doctrine included in the constitution. One was Mao Zedong, the other was Deng Xiaoping, but Xi Jinping and Mao Zedong are the only 2 people who've had their doctrines included while they were alive. Deng Xiaoping's thoughts were included after his death, posthumously. So that sort of ties in with what you just said, about Xi Jinping becoming possibly the most powerful leader since Mao Zedong. So all in all, a pretty, forceful message being sent out that, Xi is the man and is going to be the man for the next 5 years.
Well, today China did announce who's going to be part of its central committee of the Communist Party. But the biggest suspense still is about its standing committee.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the standing committee is a very important body. The standing committee of the Politburo it's a smaller group. At one time it had 9 members, then it was cut down to 7 members. These are the people who occupy the key positions. I mean, Xi Jinping himself is part of this standing committee in his position as Secretary General of the Communist Party. There is speculation that tomorrow Xi Jinping will unveil a 6-member standing committee. Now, these are the people who all hold some of the most key posts: the Premier, the Secretary General of the Communist Party, which is Xi Jinping himself. So these are the people who will be, making the most important decisions regarding the country. And it's widely expected that President Xi will unveil the members of this committee tomorrow. As you said, the Central Committee has already been named. Some surprises, some decisions along expected lines. The anti-graft leader, who was one of the key drivers of Xi Jinping's drive against corruption, he is no longer there. So there is speculation that somebody else will take over the anti-corruption drive. For India, Yang Jiechi, who is one of the top diplomats and has handled the border talks, he is still there. So, in the Central Committee. So, there hasn't been a change in that regard.
And has anything major, since you brought up India, has anything major happened during the Congress that would affect India in any way?
This Congress is going to have a fallout on not just India but the entire region, because we'll have Xi coming back in a more powerful manner. He is now, almost being described as the most powerful leader since Mao Zedong. This is a man whose decisions are less likely to be questioned by anyone within the Communist Party, which means he will have a completely free rein to to handle foreign policy, to handle economic liberalization, to handle the governance of China in the way he wants to, along with the standing committee. So basically what this means is India is going to have to deal with a much more powerful Xi Jinping.
What does that mean for the world, not just for India?
When Xi Jinping came in for his first term, there were a lot of people who described him as sort of the last hope for China. This was the guy who was going to hold things together. There were some people who were worried that the Communist Party was in decline. And, Xi Jinping was widely described as the man who was going to clean up things and, set things right. He has absolutely no time for corruption, which is something that he took up as a sort of a flagship program. He did this anti-corruption purge. But there are a lot of people who say that he used this anti-corruption drive to actually consolidate his own position and to get rid of people who might have opposed him. Okay. So what this effectively means is that this is a much more powerful Xi Jinping, who is going to be just as assertive as he has been on issues such as trade within Asia, on disputes such as the South China Sea. I mean, he's made it very, very clear that China is not going to accept any demands from any of its neighbors with whom it has disputes in the South China Sea, and China describes it as its own territory. So clearly, this is going to have an impact on freedom of navigation in these waters, which are crucial for trade. We are also going to have a Xi who's not going to back down even in the face of efforts by President Donald Trump to sort of counterbalance the rise of China, by turning to players like India.
One thing that really came out during this Congress was how 5 or 6 members of the party, they tried to overthrow Xi right when he had just taken up his post.
Yeah, well, the Chinese Communist Party has never been very open about these sort of matters, and it was a bit surprising when one of the delegates at the Congress actually spoke on this matter, and he talked about some people. But, these are all people who have been purged by Xi Jinping. We don't as yet know whether these 5 or 6 people were working together or they had made individual attempts to usurp power and overthrow Xi Jinping. But this is just the sort of thing that Xi Jinping was brought in to clean up. The party wanted him to clean up all this and get rid of people who are involved in corruption or any sort of meddling within the party. And as I said, we are clearly looking at a more powerful Xi Jinping for the next 5 years.